Hey, welcome to Kevin Elworth Unplugged, where we talk about life and leadership and all the things in between. Today, during our podcast, we are 2 weeks into the month of October. This is, episode 7 of Kevin Elworth Unplugged. And we are going to discuss today about how to invest in your own potential. This is a lesson that my family has really learned intently in the last few months. And I believe it is an invaluable secret towards success. And I want to give you some key indicators about how to do this and about what and why. And some of this is going to kind of predicate on a little bit of storytelling that I believe kind of got me and my wife, even my son, to the spot where we kind of recognized that this was something that needed to take place in our lives, and what we did with it, and then what we're doing with it on the other side of it. So let me just kind of get you to the spot about why it became necessary. A long time ago, several years back, I began to recognize the fact that I had this desire to do something more, a desire to experience more, to, invest or involve myself in more people. I had really kind of swirled my life down to the spot of I was recognizing what what really my potential was, and it really resulted in developing and deploying leaders. I really found myself just gravitating anything I could do to get in front of people to help them aspire or arrive at a new destination. Part of that was like a free class that I had taken at the church at the time that was designed to help me unlock what really was my core desire. And out of that, I came up with what I considered my life statement. And I've stuck with this, and I think it's going to be something that really continues with me for the rest of my life. But really what it came down to was helping people experience an unbelievable God in an amazing way. And I want to do that on any facet, in any level I can. And most of that is just in terms of helping people recognize how to call out the potential that really kind of stirs inside of them. What I've recognized up to this point is that really at any level or at any facet example in life, we kind of resolve ourselves to kind of a happy medium or a status quo, or we, to say it in a different way, we kind of get into survival mode. And as long as we're surviving, there will be moments where we thrive, and there will be moments where we really get something amazing and we feel so blessed in that moment, but we know that moment is fleeting. And at the end of the day, or at the end of that season, at the end of that experience, we resort back to survival mode. This is why you hear people talk frequently about they can't wait to get to the next vacation. But then when they get to that vacation, it's that dread of going home and this phase is over, because they know that these moments are so fleeting. They're just few and far between. And, you hear people talk about these experiences or these vacations that they take, and they kind of long for them, like this is never going to happen again, or it doesn't happen enough. Well, it doesn't happen enough because we don't decide it doesn't happen enough. And then there can be all that myriad of excuses why I just can't afford these kind of things, and I can't have that lifestyle. Well, the reason that you can't is because you've decided that you can't, and you've decided that the quality of the life that you're currently living is all your potential. That's all you can do. It's all that you can handle, and you will not invest in what you could become. You are kind of stuck in the mundane, and you don't know how to get out, and you don't know how to get beyond where you're at right now. The process of this movement requires a desire. Without the desire for change, you will only have a wish or a hope. This is where people who want to win the lottery, this is where they live, right? This is where they kind of swirl and they kind of resolve themselves. They'll play and then they'll complain about the status of their lives because they haven't won yet. And they're wishing for that eventual lottery win. And so you'll scratch the tickets and you'll do the things because you know that if you could just win that lottery, it would change your life and it would be that dream come true. And you could imagine yourself spending all that money and doing all the things that will come with wealth and abundance and provision and just opulence and extravagance, and the car that you would drive and the house that you live in and the things that you would have and the experiences that you would do and all that, those things. And really what we need to recognize is that, let me go back to my statement. They play and complain about the status of their lives because they haven't won yet. But here's the reality. They never will. They will never win. Even if they do get a payout, they will never win because the quality of their life or the quality of their mindset has never changed. An amount of money will not change who you are. Having possessions will not change who you are. At the end of the day, you will actually get rid of everything you have just to get back to the place where you are most comfortable. And that is an astounding realization. It's a truth. Watch people do it. It's because they don't realize that they will never win. It's because they don't realize that they've already made the choice at some point earlier in their lives that they are not winners. You can change and you can have a winning mindset before it comes in real life. When you decide that you can win with the life that you have, the life that you have will suddenly begin to manifest what you think it should offer. But it starts in your mind. Now, how do you navigate through that? You must begin with your own potential. Until you realize that you are not hitting your own potential, you will not desire anything more. Now, this is actually a biblical precedent, but it's flipped in a way that makes us feel like it's not for us. Paul said in Philippians 4, be content with what you have or with the things that you have, for he has said, I was mixing that with another verse. Be content with such things as you have, right? Well, the simple reality is that we have to begin to understand the context in which that statement was written and the context in which we live. Paul, the author of that statement, was standing in some kind of a makeshift dungeon at that time. My guess is that this was a prison that was at the bottom of a well or something like that, and just the grossness and the mire that this was contained was in that setting, or he was on house arrest, and one way or the other, he was incarcerated, he was in prison. And so he is literally saying, listen, in the place that I'm in right now, I've resolved my contentment because I cannot do anything else. It would have crippled him mentally, emotionally, physically, all those things to have any of those desires. He wasn't commanding you to, the things that you have in your life, you should just be grateful with, and you should never want anything else because you have more than you deserve right now. And so many of you already know, the Dave Ramsey thing, how are you doing? And he's always says, I'm better than I deserve. And so you've got that mentality too. And yes, our life is better than we deserve. But here's the thing. If it's less than your potential, then you should not be content. And this is where we get problematic in our life. We cast off the idea of desire or better than, or just more, or growth, or any kind of anything, and we actually label it as anti-biblical, and it's not. If you, as a created God follower, are not living up to your own potential, then I question your belief in an almighty God, because he called you into greatness. He called you into abundance. He called you into more. And if you're content with less than what he has established for you, then you're not living a life of faith. And ultimately, again, the Bible also says that whatever is not of faith is sin. And so, that's an astounding truth too. So here's the thing. How do you begin to invest in your potential? Well, it starts with desire. You have to have something inside of you that desires something different, something more. That's where potential creeps in, because you have to believe that you can attain that desire. Once you begin to integrate that into your thinking, and there's a pathway to do that, and I will walk you through that at some point along the way, this is where the investment of your potential comes into play. And I have 4 different angles that I want to established to you for this, and they are increasing in intensity. Okay. The first one is free. The first one is just free options. Actually, the first two are kind of free and very cheap. Free options. Well, what are free options to invest in your potential? Man, I'll be honest with you. I would not be where I'm at today if it was not for YouTube. And I know that sounds facetious and silly and ironic and all those things, but I began to just look for voices on YouTube that were speaking high performance, impactful truth. And as I began to listen to these people, and how do I know that they were speaking truth? Well, many of them, most of them, much of them were integrating biblical concepts into their language. And so I would understand, okay, if they're going to use the Bible to help me understand truth, then I'm going to subscribe to that. I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to put it on repeat, because there's so many voices in our world today that are taking away from us. We need to have some very trustworthy voices that we can add to our lives to invest into us. And so YouTube became my platform and my process. I also, well, let me just dive into YouTube a little bit more, because I want you to know some of the specific people that I listen to. Earl Nightingale became like the voice of my lifetime. Earl Nightingale, I don't even know when he passed away. He was an old man in the 80s, so I don't know. He probably lived into the 90s, maybe the early 2000s. I don't know. But look him up. He has some amazing content that is so packed full of truth, because he learned it and he wanted to communicate it to you and to me and to all the generations that he would surpass and overlap and all those things. Jim Rohn is another one that just speaks a lot of truth. There's another guy that I listen to quite frequently. I can't remember his name right now, but really old guy that they captured his content probably from a cassette tape, and somebody did all the work to put that on YouTube. And so there it is. I would listen to these things just on repeat. In fact, I have a playlist on YouTube that I would just put together that I just called like mindset work, or, just the generic watch later. And I would just put these voices in there so that anytime my mind was just going towards a negative space, or I needed a boost of something that I knew was truthful, I would go back and I would listen to these voices. There's one particular message that I listen to on YouTube. I've probably listened to it 100 times. It's a 30-minute talk about how to cure lack and limitation that I just listened to over and over and over and over and over and over again, because I needed that truth. It was such a vacancy and a void in my life that I had to backfill it with intensity. So free options, YouTube. The second part of free options is podcasts. There's tons of great podcasts out there that speak truth. And here's a couple that I listen to. I listen to Patrick Lencioni quite frequently. He's a team building, high performance leader, developer, that kind of thing. Obviously, I listen to the Maxwell Leadership Podcast. I listen to the Leadership Podcast with Dave Ramsey. I'm in his group, and free options out there. They're great options. How about secondly, learning options like reading. Okay. Reading or online courses, education type stuff. A lot of my stuff was through both of these things. I'm an insane reader. I read probably 20 to 30 books a year. And most of it is centered right now on growing myself and my capacity and my ability. I don't do a whole lot of fiction reading. I just don't care for it. I want to read real stories. I want to read stories about experiences. I read a lot of military stuff. I like to read about Navy SEAL stuff, Navy SEAL warfare, those kind of things. But I also love to do leadership reading. My biggest advocate book that I would have right now for you would be The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. It's a fantastic book. I'm going through it with all of the networks that I'm leading right now. Another great book, I think it's by Dave Ferguson, is called Hero Maker. Fantastic book about how to develop people in and around you. But reading, do some reading. Stop wasting your time on these things that don't change your life, and begin to invest in yourself through reading. Another one would just be online courses or education. Now, here's the caveat. Here's where the difference, the deal breaker, becomes into play for you. I get a little intense with this because it frustrates me to no end. People are making you offers all the time. you see these ads and you see these promos. And because we have this mentality, this pre-programmed mentality of skepticism, we think that person's just out to get my money. And no, what they're out to do is they're out to change your life. And they know that if you would just invest in your own potential with a few dollars, that it would grow you farther than you're beyond right now, than you're at right now. It would grow you beyond. But because you are not in a position where you can mentally receive what they have to offer, because you haven't invested in your own potential in your mind through free options, you cannot accept their paid options. But there are countless great online resources out there that will cost you something. And your education. Here's the crazy thing for me is that we will not even bat an eye at 5 figures worth of education debt that may or may not benefit you at all, but we won't pay for any kind of an online course. I'll be honest with you right now. I think there are better online courses out there than there are in the education system in America today. There, I said it. Crucify me, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in the United States education system right now. It just boggles my mind. And another thing for another time, I love what Robert Kiyosaki says about this, and I'll just let you listen to what he has to say about it. He's a little bit more established than I am, can afford to say the words that he says about the education system. But online courses, great online courses out there. The third one is this, and we're kind of rising in levels here through high intensity programs. There are some great high intensity programs that are designed to take you higher. Now, here's the thing. While you go up in intensity, you also go up in price tag. I offer a high intensity program to the clients that I work with and that meet with me most. And it is like you're desperately trying to keep your head above water. But what I found is this, is that the higher intensity that you dive into, the higher it takes you. But you have to be ready and willing to receive it. And some of these, I'll be honest with you, these are not cheap. It is expensive. But honestly, when you begin to see your potential, you begin to see the profitability in your potential, and you realize that if I'm going to go where I really want to go, good Lord, I need to know the pathway to get there. And if the pathway costs me 4 or 5 figures, but the resulting other side of that is 6 or 7 figures, isn't it worth it? This is where it gets a little stomaching for us to be like, I'm so proud of my wife. And I'm not going to go full disclosure on her with this, on you with her about this, but she just invested in herself in her own high intensity program. And it was expensive. But I tell you what, it changed her mentality in a way that I had never realized before. I was so proud of her for taking the risk on herself and valuing herself and then following through it. And then here's the other thing, though, the other one that really just blew my mind. My son runs a business now. He does car detailing. And he came to us one day, a couple months back, and he said, "Hey, I hired a coach." I'm like, "What? You hired a coach?" "Yeah." He's like, "I found this guy on Instagram and I started reaching out to him, and he's a car detailer in Miami, I believe. And he offers this coaching program to help detailers get better," and hired him. I was like, sweet. You know, the skeptic side of me 5 or 10 years ago would have been like, "Oh, no, you shouldn't be doing that, blah, blah, blah." But when I found what my son was doing and the value that he had in himself, he's paying $150 for a half an hour to talk to this guy. I was so impressed that my son would say, "This is worth my time and it's going to make me better." And by goodness, it did make him better. He became much more intense on his output and on his potential. I was so proud of him. Listen, if you've never worked with a coach or someone to take you farther in your desire and in your ability, you owe it to yourself to do it. It will be expensive. And then the fourth one is this, through ongoing mentoring relationships. Here's what I want you to know. And here's what I'm going to say about this. You can never grow to the level that you ultimately want to grow on your own. It is impossible. You can never grow to the level that you ultimately want to go to on your own. You must have the determination and discipline to ask someone else to take you higher. On your own, you can only ever survive. If the more that you invest in your potential, the more that you can ascend higher. But the higher you go, the more intense that you need. You will always find it necessary to invite someone else into your mix to take you to the next lid of leadership that you have. And then finally, you must understand this. You must be willing to pay the price, whatever the price is, to level up your leadership. Until you're willing to do that, you have reached your limit. Once you're willing to do that, you will never reach the lid of your potential. Dive into that. Let's sink into that one more time. Until you're willing to do that, you have reached your limit. But once you're willing to do that, you will never reach the lid of your potential. So do you see your potential? What is it? What is your desire? And again, we'll talk about desire at some other point along the way and just really kind of hone in on what that means and what it looks like and how to develop it. I want to ask you this. As you've already listened to me for over 20 minutes now, what have you seen in your potential? What is your potential? Do you know it? Have you honed in on it? And do you know what it looks like, or what is the desired end? And then also my question would be for you is, where have you invested in your potential, and what was your experience with that? What did it do for you? What did it do for your mind? And how did you go from there? My goodness, thanks for sitting with me today, and wherever you're at, if you're in your car or if you're just, I don't know, using me as your learning tool today. But I pray that I can help you, and I can increase your limits, your desire, your potential. And just remember this, if I can help in any way, don't ever hesitate to let me know. I'll look forward to talking with you soon. Have a great day.